We are in conversation with Yann Martel, the Man Books Prize winner, famously in India at least known for his book, The Life of Pi. Yann, could you tell us about your India Connect? You have said India had dazzled you, you have earlier said. You were hit very hard by India.
I think that's an effect that's quite common with most Westerners. There's something about India that is very stimulating to the imagination. A lot more, for example, than China. People are amazed by China because of its economic power and the way they've built all this amazing infrastructure. I don't think people are struck imaginatively by China, just to give a counterexample as they are in India. There's something about India's culture, religion, its traditions that have an intoxicating effect on Westerners. There's such a diversity of life in India. I was amazed. Like most people, I was amazed. The sheer numbers, the colorfulness, the different traditions, everything was just amazing. So yeah, I was amazed by India. So I came here first time in the late 90s to backpack for 6 months. And 3 years later, I decided to come back for another 6 months. And that's when I started working on Life of Pi.
Okay. You're connected Pondicherry, you being French-Canadian and Pondicherry being a former French colony. So, and you've based Pi's, the Patel family come from Pondicherry. So what was the basis of the idea that struck you to,
Well, some things in a novel, sometimes in art, are symbolic and are calculated by the author, and some things are more spontaneous. So you're right. I mean, after all, as you would know, Patel is actually a Gujarati name, but Indians move around, so it's quite likely you'd have Patels in Pondicherry. I chose Pondicherry just because I liked it. There was something about it that I found quite beautiful, quite relaxing, and I just thought, why not? And there is this garden in Pondicherry, a little garden that looked like it might have had a zoo. In fact, there are some cages with some birds and a few other animals. And I just thought, and there's a little train that I mentioned in the author's note, and I just imagined, this might be a place where there was once a zoo. So there's no deep symbolism. I just liked that part of the Indian world, and there was this park that looked like it could be a place where there was once a zoo, so why not put it there?
So do you feel that you have any pressure to produce another bestseller?
The success of Life of Pi was freak. I mean, it sold 50 million copies, a Hollywood movie, the Booker Prize. That can never be reproduced. And let's not forget, art is always a gift. If you create a painting, a song, a poem, a novel, it's a gift to the world. And if you get something in return, you're grateful. You can't have any expectations. So no, the book I wrote after Life of Pi was a novel called Beatrice and Virgil about how we think and talk about the Holocaust. It did a fraction as well as Life of Pi, not only in terms of sales, but in terms of reviews. That's the way it goes. You just hope to get at least a few good readers. It's not about fame and commerce. It's just about writing the best book you can and offering it to the world. So my publishers, I'm sure, hope for having more bestsellers, but you can't plan that. You can't calculate it. You just have to let the muse speak and hope that the muse produces the best book possible.
You've used animals as characters in your works.
Yeah.
You explain that.
They're good vehicles for symbolism. An animal in a book can be what it is. Tiger, a donkey, a monkey, but it also carries a heavy load of symbolism. We tend to invest animals with symbolic resonance. So, a lot of questions I get about Life of Pi is, what does the tiger mean? They don't ask me what Pi means or what Pi's mother means. They ask me what the tiger means. So we see animals in two ways, as what they are and what they might mean to us. So that's very useful for a storyteller.
How has your life panned out after the success of Life of Pi? And with your other works, has it anyway hampered?
No, on the outside, it's maybe busier. I traveled more. I traveled for like a year and a half on the success of Life of Pi, going to festival and book launches all around the world. It made me quote-unquote famous, made me wealthier, but that's all on the outside. In the inside, you don't change. You're still the same kind of writer with the same strengths, but also the same weaknesses. So after a couple of years, I felt like writing another book, so I closed the door on all that outside noise and I started a new book. And as I said, just because you did one great book doesn't mean you're suddenly a better writer who will just knock off great books afterwards. That's not the way it works.
Mm-hmm. So it has not hampered your work in any way?
No, it maybe raised other people's expectations, but that's their problem. I can just do the best that I can.
Your publishers? expect?
Well, yeah, I'm sure they did, but I have good publishers. They know there's no formula. You can't just magically produce something. You have to trust each writer to do their best, which is certainly what I do. And then, it's up to Ganesh.
So you really don't feel trapped in that sense?
No. Don't forget, you may think of me as writing Life of Pi. Life of Pi is 2 books away, back, and I'm on to my next book. There's 2 books since Life of Pi. In fact, 3, 2 novels and a collection of letters to a prime minister. And I'm now actively working on my next book, which is set during the Trojan War. So Life of Pi is very much yesterday's book for me.
Okay. So, like, life after Life of Pi, how has it been?
It's been wonderful. And as I said, I've written other books. I've had 4 children. Life is good. When you're successful as an artist, there's no better life because it's so deeply creative. Out of nothing, you create a story. And that's deeply, deeply gratifying. So, my life was good before Life of Pi. I had 2 other books before Life of Pi. I made very little money on them. But I also didn't have a family. I didn't have a car. I just rented a place. I had roommates. But I lived like a prince because every day I was investing myself in a story. While I was writing Life of Pi, when I had no money, my office was a lifeboat. And in that lifeboat, there was a tiger. It was a lovely life. And the same thing with my 2 previous books. A life of the mind is the best kind of life. I started late, so I have 4 young children, 9, 7, 5, 3, boy, girl, boy, boy. And they're wonderful. A child is like a Russian novel. It's long, it's great character, lots of plot. So it's a wonderful thing. To be a parent is, in a sense, to be like a writer. You're writing a book, but the book sort of takes control of you. So it's very gratifying. I have less time to be a writer because of my children, but it's well worth it.
What do they feel about you as a writer?
As a writer?
Yeah.
Oh, they're not at all impressed. Daddy wrote Life of Pi, who cares? They roll their eyes. I think that's always like that. Kids bring you back to earth. Not that I have any inflated ego, but really, kids, you're just daddy, and, they shrug their shoulders, they roll their eyes.
Yann, we see a lot of Buddhist influence in your work.
I don't know if it's Buddhist or just religious. Each religion, what's interesting when you look at religions is each has a kind of a different feel, a different characteristic that you see from the outside. So, for example, Christianity is very much about love. Love, 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 love. They're always talking about love. Islam is very much about unity. The Ummah, the brotherhood and sisterhood of mankind, of humankind, is very important to Muslims. It's a very social religion. Christianity isn't necessarily that social. Christianity is very vertical. There's you, there's Christ, there's God. It's like this. Islam is very more horizontal. It's very much about others. It's a very, very social religion. Hinduism, to me, is an extraordinarily colorful, narrative, symbolic religion. There's a million gods, a million stories. It reflects very ably the complexity of the human psyche, sort of like the Greek myths. The Greek myths are a very good map of the human mind. Hinduism is the same too. And what I love about Hinduism is it's so heterodox. There's no orthodoxy in Hinduism. So there's Hinduisms, plural. And that's unusual in religions. Usually religions have an orthodoxy. Jewish, Christian, Muslim, there's kind of an orthodoxy. You're pushed towards orthodoxy. Hinduism isn't like that. It's dizzyingly varied, and that's very exciting.
Again, I just want to touch. Have you been to this the Buddhist circuit in East?
Well, I went to Bihar where Buddhism started. I've been to I met the Dalai Lama, as it happens, in Dharamsala. But as I said, it's interesting that I find Buddhism influenced Hinduism a lot. I do like Buddhism too, but no more, no less than any other religion.
Have you traveled the eastern part of the country?
This is my first time in Kolkata, but I've been to West Bengal, but only to Siliguri. So West Bengal I traveled less than I did other states like UP and the south. I went from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, as the expression goes. There's a few states I missed, but I backpacked pretty intensely for in total about 13 months. That's a very intense way to look at a country. You really get to feel it and see it.
Can you tell us about your next book?
Well, it's set during the Trojan War.
Mm-hmm.
So this mythical war between the Greeks and the Trojans around 1200 BC. And I'm positing an alternate tradition. not the one that you hear of in Homer, but another tradition in competition with the Homeric tradition that would have been suppressed by the Homeric tradition. And it's going to be a novel in two voices. On the top of the page, you'll get these fragments from antiquity, these fragments of this lost tradition. And on the bottom of the page, you'll get the commentary on this tradition from a scholar, a fictitious scholar. So it'll be this dialogue between antiquity and modernity, between these fragments of fiction and the sort of non-fiction on the bottom. Now, it'll be fictional anyway, but it'll have a slightly more non-fictional feel. So there'll be, there'll be text blank or blank text. I like that alternation. So as I said, I'm discussing this ancient tradition, the Trojan War tradition.
When do we expect to see this?
I'm going to start. I've actually finished my research, and I'm going to actually start the writing of it. In the next week when I get back from India. I'm literally going to start the writing, hopefully at the end of next week sometime. Good.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.